Welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for this lunch presentation. And I'd like to start by thanking again John Lewis to allow us to have this extra slot for this ANZPAC workshop. As I presented quickly on the first day of the workshop, we just started literally the preparation of this new project a couple of months ago. So that's why we arrived a bit late on the program, but thanks to John, we have this extra opportunity to address you. My presentation was a bit more general on the concept of partnerships between the donor and the IMO, but now John will give you a bit more detail on the upcoming project, the GloFouling project, and then we can run a few questions if you have any questions, and then we can finish our lunch together as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, first, and sorry for the for this lunch, very short lunch. We'll make it short and brief and allow you to go back and refill your plates. It's worthwhile, we're going to go through a bit what the project strategy and structure, because that will give a better understanding of the opportunities that there are during the implementation of the project. And we'll give you some examples of the possible outputs and activities that can be done. We'll explain briefly what the timeline is, what we are doing right now, and we'll talk about what are our needs right now as well. And we'll have some moments for a few questions as well. Right, so this is the name of the project, as Antoine mentioned yesterday. It's based on a proved model already that's been implemented through Globalist and GloMeep. The important thing to understand is that we are United Nations. Our main goal is developing countries. So really that's our goal. I mean, we have to help them implement the IMO biofouling guidelines, also for recreational vessels in these developing countries. But it's important to realize how this is done. It's done at the three levels, the global, regional, and national level. So, and these create opportunities to implement more activities, to reach out more than just to the developing countries. I'll give some examples later, but for example here, the global tools, I mean, it's development of, guidelines and best practices, even forums like here discussing, maybe doing demonstration sites and things like that. That hopefully then will trickle down to the regional level, which we get regional agreements so that this harmonized measures throughout each region. I mean, so we make sure that each country is not working against each other. Then obviously we try to bring that to the national level, bring it into policy and institutional decisions, even a legal framework, and training as well, for example, port state control officers or other different people of the administration, of national administrations. In parallel, and this is the beauty of this model, we are a project which, although we are with the UN, we are able to engage with the private sector. So we can sort of create a similar structure as this one, but just with the private sector. And that as well creates then many synergies between both private sector and more the institutional level with the governments. The project is governed, I mean, this is important to understand, it has a governing body, which is the Global Project Task Force, we call it GPTF. So basically we bring together a representative of each participating country, the regional organizations, the strategic partners as well, and a representative that would be normally the secretary of the private sector task force. So what this governing body does is it monitors what the activities that have been decided to implement, and it can review them as well. It can modify what the project is going to implement. Obviously then that goes on to the project coordination units, and then it all trickles down into the regional organizations and the countries, and very importantly as well, to neighboring countries. I mean, we do not only work with the partner countries of the project. I mean, once we work with them, through the regional organizations, we present them as models of implementation for biofouling guidelines, for example, in this case. So then other neighboring countries become interested as well. So they, as well, then that's how Globalist, for example, worked with 15 countries, but in the end we had an outreach to 70 countries, all in all, developing strategies for ballast water, for example, etc., etc. The private sector has the same more or less model, but completely parallel, separate from this. So they have a GIA task force, what we call the Global Industry Alliance Task Force, with the representative from each of the private companies that have joined the GIA. They discuss a completely different set of activities, what they decide, what are the needs, what they think it can help, and these are then implemented by the project itself with the same staff. So it's a pretty cheap way for the industry to address some of their issues. So basically, right now at this moment, the project has a funding from the Global Industry Alliance, the Global Environment Facility of $7 million. We have calculated that will be cash and in-kind co-financing of $33 million. So this is an approximation. For example, for Globalist, we started with $5.6 million, and we had the co-financing reached almost $50 million. So this will change throughout the implementation of the project. We are planning to have 12 partner countries distributed, very importantly, in 5-6 regions. We have to spread out throughout the world. Project duration is going to be 5 years. We hope to start by mid-2018. Initially, it will be 5 years, as I said. I mean, there's always a possibility of 1 or 2 year extension, but that will depend on what we are doing now. If we have to implement new activities decided by the global, the GPTS, so the governing body of the project. Right now, there are 4 components outlined. I mean, they are very broad. I will give some examples. I mean, how does this translate into activities as well? Remembering that it's all done at the global, regional, and national level. For example, for the first component, I mean, it's more LPIR, what we call legal, policy, and institutional reform. But this starts at the global level, maybe in identifying best practices or strategies, things like that. That's decided with or developed through people like you, for example, that contribute to that. Also, then that will trickle down into regional and national level implementation. At national level, then we have national task forces that sort of create their own biofouling strategies. Then they hopefully they'll develop some kind of national legislation. And then obviously, as I mentioned before, there will be hopefully some outreach to neighboring countries. This is done as well through capacity building as well. We create training packages. I don't know, we get consultants, experts from different nations, hopefully from the region itself, and help the national level institutions to develop these objectives. We are also thinking, we have not thought well about this yet, we have to determine it. Maybe if there will be some demonstration sites that will create opportunities like for contenting, for example, I think Nick, I don't know if he's in here, maybe running this, give them an access maybe to the national transport or the shipping agencies, for example, open the doors maybe to run maybe some demonstrations or some research that maybe he had difficulty in implementing right now. As I said, then there's the public-private partnerships with the GIA. These obviously have not been defined. These activities will be decided by the GIA, by the task force. We have examples of what has been done in the past. I mean, we've harmonized testing practices and we've developed e-learning courses. We've done R&D conferences, many things. I mean, there's no limit. Knowledge management as well. I mean, that's what we did for Globalist. We sort of set up a main centralized hub for information sharing. Both is not only on research, also in related to legislation, for example, or country requirements. That's a very good source of information especially for the shipping industry. As I said, we've done as well many international conferences. So there's another potential that we can bring to at the global level. This is a brief example of what we've done with Globalist. I mean, at the global level, we've done obviously the documentary of the invaders of the sea. We did as well other shorter documentaries as well of showcasing how we did capacity building. We have published quite a few publications on scientific and guidance. I mean, we have a few examples outside. There are many things that we've done. right now, at this stage, we are preparing the project. So the goal is to prepare a project document which will sort of set out all the activities that will be implemented during the 5 years. We are aiming to make the submission by the end of March next year, with a view to start implementation by the 1st of July 2018. Right now we are here making some, trying to find, making stakeholder consultations, trying to determine what is the baseline situation right now, getting ideas from you of activities that could be implemented. And then all that will have to be fitted with the resources, with the financial planning, and then we'll have to decide what can be done and what cannot be done. What we need right now, this is what we are, that's why we are here. One of the main things we need to determine is the geographical areas for intervention. Which countries or regions are most at risk or will benefit most from our intervention. And there are a few conditions. I'll go through it afterwards, but they have to be eligible for GEF funding. So they have to be least developing countries or SIDS. We are also trying to find information to establish what the best baseline and the alternative scenarios will be. Because this will be key to set the performance indicators of what the project and how the project will be evaluated at the end of its completion. We have shared with you an online survey. Many of you have already completed it. We would really appreciate it. It's not so much of a survey, it's sort of a first stage of information gathering. And then we hope, based on what we receive, we will contact you and try to go more in depth of what we have received. One side note of how countries are selected. I mentioned that we are required to have a spread. We cannot just put all the funds into, for example, East Asia and the Pacific. We have to have something in America, Mediterranean, Africa, etc. That's why we are thinking of 5-6 regions. There is also a big lesson in development from the last 10-15 years is that we cannot impose activities, objectives to developing countries. There must be a level of commitment from policymakers in the country. They have to be in it already from the start. If not, then we just do a 5-year intervention, and when we leave, then that's just forgotten, and it's useless, like throwing the money away. So we have to sort of ensure that there is some country ownership. So then after the project ends, they will continue supporting what we have been achieving in those countries at that moment in stage. Right now, the IMO has published a call for expressions of interest. That is already a first part of our review. There we have a short questionnaire for the countries as well to start determining what level of commitment they may have. That will help us as well choose in the end the countries. What we need right now, apart from the information that we are gathering from here and all the suggestions, we also need to, for the project document that we plan to present in March, we need strategic partners. What is the advantage of being a strategic partner? You then participate in the governing body of the project. So you are with the countries, you're hearing the countries what they need, or what complaints they have, or what problems there is in implementation of biofouling guidance. So that's gives you an input of what is happening, and it can help you as well with your own policy. And it also gives you, the opportunity to work with us, developing publications, best practices, training courses. That's how we develop them as well. What we need for that is right now is letters of support. There may be we are receptive to in-kind co-financing. We would contact all of you next week, probably more formally, approach you to see if you would be interested in being part of, being strategic partners of the project. And if we forget anyone, please contact us. We'd be very happy to send you our letter. These are some examples of past partners for Globalist, for example. We have the whole spectrum, really, from the shipping industry, from IUCN. There's a bit of everything. In parallel, as I said, we have the GIA, so this is for the private sector participation. This right now, we need basically letters of support of the private sector. That would be very helpful. Once the project starts its implementation, then we will create the GIA, and then we will call for a participation of, a more formal call for private companies to join the GIA. That will normally imply some cash contribution, because basically the activities implemented by the GIA are self-funded. So it's a good opportunity, it's a good investment. Very recently we've had a sister project, GloMeep, on energy efficiency, and they have been very successful. They've had almost 20 really large companies joining the GIA. It's a great opportunity to implement it, to address maybe concerns of the GIA, of the industry, sorry. The next step that we have now in this stakeholder consultation, we're going to have a parallel session during the Sustainable Oceans Summit in November in Halifax. There we are basically, this is organized by the World Ocean Council. The attendance there primarily is going to be non-shipping sector, non-shipping private sector. We have 1 or 2 slots still in the parallel event, so if anyone is really interested in attending there, please contact us. We would be very happy to see if we can fit you in. Contact us directly, not the World Ocean Council, because I think the deadline has just gone already, so we'll be able to fit you in very happily. And that's just about it. This is just a reminder of what we've gone through. It's as I said, it's 12 countries, 5 years, global, regional level, and then at the national level with a strong industry participation. Our goal right now is the project document. We are going through the baseline review right now. We expect to start in July 2018. What we need, your input, strategic partners. That's just about it. We really appreciate your interest. I think Antoine will come here as well to see if you have any questions. We'd be very happy to address them.
Thank you very much, John.
Well,